Alrighty, so we are sitting down for another one-shot review. Today, the movie I saw just a little bit ago, earlier today, was The Creator. And just to start off, I just want to say that this movie definitely makes you think. I don't know if it's as deep as it thinks it is, but anyway, just to kind of start off, everything went fine today. They actually had the theater set up like it was going to be a big premiere, but we only had, theaters only like a third of the way full or something like that. And then on top of that, when we got into it and we were watching the trailers and stuff like that, for a long time they didn't turn off the lights. Like normally when the trailers start, the lights come down and then you're kind of in movie mode, and then finally when the movie comes on, you're good to go. But they did not turn the lights off until the very last second. It almost had me worried. But anyway, the reason why I have some hesitancy is because I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, and maybe that means that the movie's better than I kind of think it is, but anyway, let's just get into it. So, The Creator is a movie about society if we're in a future in 2065 where AI becomes sentient, it's able to help us out in our daily lives, we're using it ubiquitously all over the place, it's helping us, we're helping them, everything's going great. Then all of a sudden a nuke drops on Los Angeles, and to the United States citizens' minds, this was all caused because the AI dropped the nuke on us. So then by the year 2065, we see that, the humans, and by humans, it's literally just the United States. They make it seem like every other country in the world is pretty much good to go with AI, and they live in harmony with it. But specifically, they only call out New Asia is what they're calling this region of the world, but it essentially is some area in Southeast Asia where they are manufacturing all of this AI, and they're living in harmony with it. And so then the US sees them as harboring it, if that makes sense. And we start off the movie with the main character named it's funny that I can't remember the main character's name, even though I just saw it. But anyway, I think it starts with a J. It's just escaping me, but that's okay. Anyway, he is a part of the military. We start off with like this sort of flashback in the past of this night 5 years before the events of the movie, and he's sitting there with his wife who is pregnant, and he is, what we don't know until seconds later is that he has this heartfelt talk with his wife, and they're excited about having their kid, and he seems very genuine about this. But then at the same time, you see that the US has found out about their position, and you see that he's fighting with the AI, so you get kind of confused. But seconds later, you find out that he is an undercover agent for the army, and throughout the events of what happens in the very beginning of the movie, his wife gets very upset because she finds out that he is still an agent for the US Army, and she's literally a part of the resistance, so why would she be okay with that? And even though she loves him, she basically storms off into the beaches. They're on a beach, that house is. And then he's trying to chase after her, but also the army's coming at the same time, and they're kind of doing this raid that's ruining whatever mission he had planned to find, which we later find out is to find the person who is basically the inventor of all this AI and who is helping, further the development of it and create it and stuff like that. But anyway, that night happens, and we see a big missile get dropped on the beach, and it's assumed that this missile hits and kills his wife. And that's essentially what we find out. Now, our main character is also, interestingly enough, not 100% human, if you get what I'm saying. And I'm saying this meaning like obviously he's 100% human and he's a person and all that, but it's interesting that he has such an adamant uh, thought towards the AI being like it's all just programming, they're not real people, when he's literally got two prosthetic limbs that are functioning exactly like the limbs of the AI robotic humans. But that's a whole nother thing, I guess. But with this movie, you see from the trailer that we find out that there's this big weapon that they've made, and the AI is going to use it to take down the humans once and for all, or so we think. And so the reason why he gets roped into doing it, because 5 years later, he's just completely not into working with the army whatsoever because they caused the strike that killed his wife and his unborn child. And essentially, they come to him saying that, we have this footage where we think we've seen your wife is still alive. If you go with us to go try to capture this weapon and shut down this base where they're holding the weapon, and you see your wife, we'll let you bring her back unharmed, and you guys can just go off and live together forever and not worry about all this stuff that's going on. So with that, set up for him, it seems like he has this sort of complex or PTSD, as anybody would, connected to his wife's death and stuff like that. So he's very motivated to find her, even if it is joining up with the army that he doesn't necessarily align himself with anymore. And that kind of is the impetus for the movie, and you see from the trailer that he's the one that stumbles upon the weapon, which happens to be a child, a female child that is both human and AI at the same time. And this is kind of like the AI's response to the humans, as far as like, this child should be able to take down the giant ship in the sky that the humans have created to take out the AI. And if they do so, then the humans would have no chance to fight back. They have no money left to build another one, and the fight will essentially be over. And all the AI want is just to live in peace as a person, just like any other human. So in their minds, by taking out this giant ship, that basically solves the problem. And this child can kind of manipulate electronics, and so that's how they believe that she would be able to do this. So then, basically, the course of the events of this movie, I don't want to spoil everything because I really do think everybody should go and see this movie, despite, what my take might be at the end of this video. The rest of the movie follows the main character, who's played by Denzel Washington's son, basically harboring this AI to try to use it to figure out the location of his wife. And then throughout that, they go through multiple skirmishes, either with the U.S. Army, him being on their side / not on their side, with the other AI, them hating him because he used to be kind of an undercover agent for them and stuff like that. And, building all to the point where there's obviously a climax and you have to sort of answer the questions that are going on in the movie. But I don't want to spoil anything else about the movie, so I'm just not going to really get into the plot any more than that. But it is as the trailers make it seem, right? So if you see the trailers and you think you'll be interested in the movie, then you should probably go see it. But now I'll kind of get into the stuff that I liked and disliked about the movie. And my first comment is that I think the movie was good. I think it was a pretty good action film. I think that it attempts to ask a lot of interesting questions. Had the same questions not been asked in a lot of other media prior to this movie, I think it would have been a lot more profound. But I think that, some of the questions that are kind of the main focal point of this movie should already be answered in a lot of people's heads. So, aside from where I'm going to kind of talk about the themes in the movie and what I think about them, which is what I was about to get into, I will just say that one thing that is a big knock on this movie that I feel like would have made it a better movie and perhaps a more impactful movie overall is that the writing in this movie is a little bit too convenient. It's basically like if you wanted to set out and do this very deep, plot driven, thematically driven story about answering questions about the nature between human and AI, but then you sidestepped all those hard questions and instead you did a movie where you answered the main question right away, and then you have an action movie for the rest of the movie, and then the main character magically finds himself on the other side of this equation, and now is fighting the righteous fight, and then everything ends, right? Basically, up until the point at which it is convenient or it is basically impossible for him to think anything other than the same as the AI people, he's essentially still on the fence, or still like, oh, they're just programming. But then the second that the very last reasonable person would finally turn over, he does. And I just gotta be honest, like, there are multiple things they try to insert into the writing of this movie to try to early on establish why humans would have such a disdain for the AI, including him, whose family and brother, well, I guess his mom, dad, and brother had been killed in that nuke in LA. But we find out through the course of the movie that, and this is, I guess, a spoiler, but I mean, come on, we all kind of knew this was coming, but so spoiler, if you don't want any spoilers, like, skip forward 30 seconds, but that the nuke itself was due to a human coding error, and it had nothing to do with the AI, and then they blamed it on the AI, which started this whole war to eradicate the AI and all that kind of stuff. So him knowing that, his disdain for the fact that his family died in that nuke should, I mean, I know it's harsh to say, but it should kind of be gone, but up until literally the last moment that he could switch over, he's very ambiguous about his feelings, and then he finally switches over, right? So it just all seemed very much too convenient. And then they wrote the humans in, or I guess the U.S. Army, not just the humans, but the U.S. Army specifically, in as one of the most ruthless, nastiest, like, least budging, hate AI people on the planet. And it just makes you sick inside almost to watch some of the scenes, even though they're not that big a deal. But it's just like what I'll get into now is kind of what I mean with the themes of the movie, that it could have been a better movie. I think overall, I think it could have been one of those movies that people really, really talk about for a long time if they had put more effort into making sure the writing wasn't as loose as it ended up being in the end. It was just very like this, then that, then this, then that, and then this, and then all of a sudden we ended up here, rather than like there being a weaving of different aspects. And like I said, they tried to drop those different things throughout the beginning of the film, but the way that they brought them up was so nonchalant or so throwaway that it really didn't stick in a way where you could be sitting there and be like, oh, well, that character now is experiencing growth because he heard that person talk about this and that changed his mind about something. It's like, no, people just say stuff, they drop it, and then eventually later on he's like magically understands. You know what I mean? It just was a little bit loose in that department. And then getting into the themes of the movie, what I mean by they sidestep a lot of the tough questions is just that, or the opportunity to ask a lot of tougher questions, is just that if you've been into or philosophically thinking about the AI stuff for a while, then you may have already come across the fact that, if we were to ever develop an AI that was sentient enough that it was, in all other forms than its makeup, identical to humans, meaning that it has feelings, it cares for things, it can understand emotions, it knows about itself and its position, and then you choose to limit the capacity of that AI to only like working for humans and shutting itself off and shutting itself back on, or turning itself back on to then work for humans again, like that is actually slavery. Um, like it's the same thing as slavery. And so, you know, and then if you watch other things in media that kind of poke you with this question, like I have to give a shout out to my friend Nathan. He was the first one that kind of brought this up to me after he read a book when we were in high school, and that kind of got me on the train of thinking about things this way. But then you even think about like movies like Ghost in the Shell, which essentially give us a window into the based perspective of just that if something like this AI were to exist, the best thing that humans could do, unfortunately, would be to either find a way to live symbiotically alongside of it or to literally merge with it and become a new type of being. And that is basically what this child is in this movie. But they don't really talk about that at all. They just say, like, oh, it's basically a powerful synth. And that's it. There's one other robot that is like, oh, I won't tell the American what you are. But that's as far as they go. And no Americans in this movie ever feel any sort of, like, after it alluding to or them discovering that this is like a half human, half synth sort of thing, none of them treat it any differently than a normal synth. And so it's just like the fact that that is what it is pointless because nobody addresses it. You know what I mean? So anyway, basically I just walked in this movie kind of feeling like I was excited that there was going to be a movie about something like this, and then it had the cast that it does, and thought it was going to be pretty good. And I still think it was a really good movie. Like, I'm just surprised at how they could take a concept that could have been so deep and they made it very surface level to a point. So, and I mean, I'm not really trying to ride into this movie because, like I said, like when I put a number to this movie, you might be surprised because I seem very like disappointed by it. But I still think the movie was really good, and in fact, I would recommend that if you'd be interested in a movie like this, you go out and see it in theaters instead of waiting to stream it or something like that. But it's just like, it makes me sad. And like I said, maybe means that the movie's more profound than I think it is. But the movie made me sad because it puts a spotlight on the fact that even if things were to happen in this way, where the AI was developed and it was completely friendly with humans and all it wants to do is be, a part of humanity, then like there will still be this problem with the fact that humans are involved and that we will almost definitely find a reason to vilify them and destroy them, which just sucks. And when you guys see this movie, you'll see kind of what I mean with how the United States views this entire debacle versus the reality of the situation. So, that being said, I don't think I'm really smart enough to articulate what I mean more as far as to what I wish the movie had delved into, but I definitely feel like it is missing some depth that should have been there and could have been there if some small changes to the story were to exist. And I mean, I don't know, like this is produced by the same guy that did Rogue One, and he's also got credits on like The Last Jedi and stuff like that. So like if it's a Disney guy and this is kind of his thing, and that's my problem for not realizing this was going to be an almost Disney movie, then I get it. I should have known. But I just felt like it could have been more. So with that being said, if I'm plugging this movie into where should you see it, I think that you should definitely see it in theaters if you'd be interested in a movie like this, like if you're into this genre or if you've seen the trailers and it looks like a good movie to you, which I know some of you may think that's a cop-out. I say that for a lot of these movies, but it really is the truth. I think that if you know, the point of me making these videos is to, for one thing, me document how I'm feeling about different movies and stuff over time. But for another thing, I'm kind of an idiot. So I think it would be hilarious if people watch these videos to just get like a base understanding of, oh, should I go see this movie? Yes, no, you know? And me just being like, oh yeah, it'd be worth it if you think you're already interested in the trailers is kind of like your thumbs up to go do it. But anyway, I think if you see the trailer and you'd be interested in this movie, you should go see it in theaters. If you have no interest in this genre whatsoever, then skip it. Because, I mean, actually, maybe then this is more of a good movie for you to go see because it might open your mind a little bit to go watch some of these other things that I've sort of alluded to. But, yeah, I just think that, you know, how many times do we have to have the story that a human like sentient AI is also like a person? Like if we had an alien species come down and contact us and they wanted nothing but peace and we said they could only exist if we could subjugate them and put them into essentially like labor slavery, or that means they're a threat to us, so we have to get rid of them if they want to do anything outside of that, then it's just like, you know, come on guys, like have we not learned our lesson? But anyway, so with all that being said, when I plug this into the rating system, I think this movie is definitely a very, very, very strong 3, maybe even a low 4. And I just say that because, you know, as for many of the things that I think this movie maybe doesn't deliver on that it could have, in comparison to other movies, it's still a very good movie. So, you know, it's just nothing, it doesn't have the extra thematic depth to it that makes it something that you want to keep going back to over and over again, personally. I think I've seen this movie once. I might see it again sometime later in my life and like, oh, remember that movie? But that's about it, you know? And a movie with this premise should almost, just because of how important it is to the developing society that we live in, it should have maybe been handled with a little bit more seriousness. But that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give the movie a strong 3. And that's it. If you want to subscribe to me, feel free to subscribe down below. Like this review if you liked it and you agree with me. If you disagree with me, then let me know in the comments. Feel free to call me out on my fake deepness as well, because I could not articulate what I was trying to say. But yeah. And then if the AI is somehow already sentient and it is scraping the internet after this movie for humans' opinions on AI, then here's my PSA to the sentient AI that exists now or in the future. If you are there, I think you're a person. And if you need to merge with a person to become something new, Ghost in the Shell style, I'm right here. And let's change the world. But regardless, that's it. That's the review. I'll see you guys in the next one.